So the SBS for the new volume 1114 just came out, and with it we got confirmation on a bunch of stuff. Some stuff that's actually pretty important. First of all, we're finding out who was speaking to the Gorosei in the Revery in chapter 907, because Oda was asked, "I've been wondering for a long time, was that hooded figure talking to the five elders during the Reverie about a certain pirate actually Shanks, or was it Shamrock? Also, does mermaid poop come out from the front or the back?" And Oda said, the back. And yes, it was Shamrock. In the anime, it was actually voiced by Shanks' voice actor, Shuichi Ikeda. I realized, I forgot to tell the anime staff that it's not Shanks. So there you go. Confirmation that that was Shamrock. Shanks beat the snitch allegations. So, yeah, Shanks is pretty much a good guy. I mean, I'm sure there's some morally grayness to him still, but he's more or less, pretty much through and through a good guy. Shamrock, of course, not so much. But as for the certain pirate that Shamrock was mentioning, well, that's still up for debate, which is pretty fun. Let me know in the comments who you think he was talking about. Could be Shanks, could be Blackbeard, could be Luffy. We'll see. Oh, while we're on Shanks and Shamrock, the name of their mother is revealed, and it was Magnolia. I don't know why Oda just couldn't reveal that in the chapter itself, but all right. Oda was also asked, the Kozuki Moria seen in chapter 1158's cover page, is it actually Gecko Moria? Oda says that's right. I actually wanted to reveal this during the Wano country arc, but I couldn't find the right opening to fit it in. Based on the information I've given you all so far, Moria was described like this. He once fought with Kaido. After his entire crew was killed, he developed a personality that relies on others. He possessed the corpse of the legendary samurai Ryuma and the famous sword Tsushui. From those points, you might have imagined that he had been to Wano before, but what I really wanted to share is the reason for his fight against Kaido. When Moria was a young boy, he drifted ashore in Wano. The people of Ringo region took him in warmly, because they cherished him and gave him the name Kozuki, in honor of his strength. Moria, who had already set out to sea as a pirate, returned to fight Kaido in an attempt to save the people of Wano from his attack. However, he was defeated. After his loss, Moria felt so ashamed that he left Wano without saying a word. The people assumed he had died and built a grave for him. Since I cut this from the main story, it's just a need-to-know bit of trivia. So that's pretty cool and also kind of sad. So first of all, Oda says that he didn't have time to include this in Wano. That's wild because Wano is the longest arc, and of course there was tons of stuff in there that didn't need to be there. You could have just easily fit this in there, right? But who am I to say? I'm not the one crafting One Piece. Anyway, we were speculating a lot when this was revealed on the cover of 1158, but now it turns out that Moria is not like a Kozuki by blood, he's just a Kozuki by name. I don't even know if it was the Kozuki clan that named him. Maybe it was just these people in Ringo that named him. But I guess this means that Moria can't read the poneglyphs unless they did teach him. But considering that Oda says, since I cut this from the main story, it's just a need to know bit of trivia, kind of like Schrodinger's translator, I guess. Maybe he can read the poneglyphs, maybe he can. If he can read the poneglyphs, that would certainly help the Cross Guild, which we assume that he's going to join, because they currently don't have a poneglyph reader. And that would be a really cool reveal if he can read the poneglyphs like they just taught him, because he is a Kozuki. Because, if it was the Kozukis that named him and raised him, then maybe they would teach him, but maybe not. I don't know. But I love the fact here that Moria willingly returned to Wano to try to save them from Kaido, while Odin just twerked and did nothing. But this is a huge upscale for Moria, and it kind of shows that he wasn't always a terrible person, I guess. And I think when he returns, fully returns, he will have a face turn, or more face than heel if he does join the Cross Guild. Because the Cross Guild right now are kind of in-betweeners, they're not necessarily heels, not necessarily faces. So I think he would fit in right there with them. And going further, Oda does confirm here that back in the God Valley flashback, Captain John did have Kid's Devil Fruit originally, along with Gonzoi having Mr. Five's Bomb Devil Fruit, and Gil Bastar having Perona's Devil Fruit. The two formers are pretty obvious because they have straight up fight scenes during that arc. Gil Bastar, he was more of an Easter egg kind of. You really had to pay attention to the panels to see it, but nice to get some confirmation. And like I said before, we're going to see more of this once we get into the Void Century, because we're going to see the original users of all of the Devil Fruits, or at least the prominent ones, I guess, and that's gonna be fun. And also, while we're still on Rox here, he's confirming that Rox himself, his sword's name is Eclipse, and his ship's name is Rox's Fury. So that's cool, I guess. The sword name Eclipse, of course, goes more along with the theme of Sun and Moon stuff, which is like one of the biggest themes of One Piece. So there you go. Oda's also asked about Roger's Jolly Roger, because he's asked that the ship has this mark, the mustache skull, but Roger himself hasn't grown a mustache yet. Why is that? And Oda says, that's right, those are udon noodles, you see? That's udon. Yeah, I got questions about this one. I got it a lot. You're right. I think 99% of readers didn't care, but now 100% of you won't be able to unsee it. What should I do for the overseas fans? Is long macaroni okay? So, yeah, I like this, because it shows that Oda isn't freaking perfect. So many of you, I'm not necessarily saying the people watching this video, but like, I guess like, you know, all of like the real try-hard grandstandy types on Reddit, Twitter, and then other like ultra Oda sycophant YouTubers like think that he's perfect and infallible and everything he does is for a reason. And he's clearly shown time and time again in these SBSs that no, that's not the case. And I really like that he says, I think 99% of the readers wouldn't care, because that's true, or at least close to 99%. The hardcore fandom, which I guess this is, if you're watching this video, you're not necessarily a hardcore, but you're on the verge of it. That's a small part of the fandom, you know, maybe 10% at most, I'm guessing. You know, in light of me even saying that, if you look at it in the anime, it does look like it's noodles. So maybe Oda is perfect. Maybe he did craft this in a fourth dimensional way that my puny 8 brain can't comprehend. I also like to go over the nonsense questions that Oda gets in these Q&As, because it also shows that he just straight up answers nonsense in these things. And I get it, trying to have some fun, I suppose, but I'm sure he's also getting so many other better questions than these. Not necessarily even questions that would straight up spoil the series if he answered them, because I know he can't answer those. But like, for example, somebody asked, I want to be Gunko's slave, and Oda said, go right ahead. And then another one here. Hello, Oda. For people in One Piece who dress like this, referring to the high-cut outfits in the image. One image is Nami's Elbaf skirt outfit. One image is the Kuja skirt outfit. Are they not wearing any underwear? And Oda says, of course they aren't. I mean, how would they even wear anything under that? Can you please stop ruining our dreams? So yeah, we're getting into the real important stuff of One Piece here, guys. But I appreciate that he at least gave a straight up answer to this, because in One Punch Man, One and Murata were always asked, like, is Tatsumaki wearing underwear? And they never really like gave a clear answer, which I think is fun. But here you go, guys, the serious stuff that we needed to know. And then I guess the last thing we could talk about here is him talking about Shiki. So he says that Shiki's swords are skillful grade. There's like 50 of those swords in existence or whatever. And that he is currently 73 years old, which is really interesting, because that could imply that Shiki is still alive. Now, it's possible that Oda didn't even realize what he actually says here when he's saying like currently. Maybe he's just saying that he would be 73 years old. But will Shiki come back in the main story? Possibly, maybe in like one panel in the very last final war saga or whatever. But let me know what you think about all this in the comments, guys. If you liked it, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.